she introduces our Veterans Day video.
We are so grateful and want to honor all of our veterans because without their sacrifices and the sacrifices of their families, we wouldn't have the freedoms we have today. Our World War II veterans are special treasures to us, and there are not many of these veterans left. About a month ago, Jacob Monison, Hannah Fritchie, and I had the special privilege and honor to go to Kerrville, Texas with Colonel Wilson and his wife, Nancy, to meet World War II veteran Norman Rigsby. Mr. Rigsby was in the third wave at Normandy and is the grandfather of 2 Houston Christian alumni. We are really fortunate to be able to capture Mr. Rigsby's story on film, and are glad we can share it with you today. Thank you.
I was 18 when I got drafted.
Scary.
Oh, I wanted to enlist, but my mom wouldn't sign for me. 3 days later, I was drafted anyway. So I was 18 when I hit Omaha Beach. That's how old I was. Pretty young.
What was it like when you hit the beach?
People were shooting at me.
Yep.
They really were shooting at me. It's a whole different ball game. The language, what they do, and way they eat, everything's different. They kept us busy, that's for sure. Well, we were moving forward, trying to get after the Germans. And that's when we ran into them. We weren't expecting them, but they were there on the road. There's about 5 or 6 of them, I guess.
Tiger tanks?
Yep, Tiger tanks. They're the newer, bigger tanks. He got half of my stomach.
Wow.
With that big old cannon of his. So, from there, I don't know. I was in a coma for 15 days. And I don't remember too much of it. But I know I hurt. I hurt pretty bad. I remember it real well because there was a real young nurse in there with me in the room. And finally, after 15 days, I opened my eyes and she started hollering, "He's awake! He's awake!"
What'd you have to go after that? Did you head back to the States or would you stay over?
No. There was about 10 of us. They decided to send us back to France. They thought it was great that we came. So I made it all the way to Berlin. And after Berlin, they sent me to the Nuremberg trials. I stood right behind Glory. Yes.
Because he was your prisoner at the time, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Man, it was all a challenge. We were kept busy all the time. When we weren't down in the foxhole, I learned to speak German. Sprechen the Deutsch.
If you could go back and go through what you went through at Normandy, would you do
Well,
it
if it
again?
was necessary, I'd go back. It's not fun, but something that has to be done. Well, I did just like hundreds of other young Americans did.
Yep.
We had to beat the Germans.
Yep.
And we did.
Yes, we did.
Thanks to your
We lost a
sacrifice.
few, but that's the way it goes.
Yep.
So this is yours. Can you tell us about the Bible you carried
This
with
is
you?
mine. How'd you get that?
You brought it.
I brought it up here.
You did?
Yeah, you recognize that?
Yeah, I do. I know you had it. I read it a lot. I read it. Damn, the whole thing. Yeah, one time or another. That's quite a book.
So when they wanted to knight you, were you surprised?
Yeah, look how late this is. This past year. It took all this time to do that. I don't know why it took so long, but it did.
Why did they do that?
Well, I guess they were grateful for us freeing France from the Germans.
Okay.
That was what the main thing was.
Okay.
And the gold medal's a beauty. It's a big old solid gold. It's beautiful. But the French people are really, they're really thankful for us coming. They couldn't get enough of us. I'm Sir Norman. The French, they make sure that people call you Sir. Sir Norman. Study hard. No hooking. Don't chase the girl.
Well, thank you so much for your service. Thank
Oh,
you.
you're welcome.
Thank you for your service. Thank you so much.
Please welcome Taylor Allen as she introduces our guest speaker for today.
It is my pleasure to introduce today's keynote speaker, Colonel Travis Coe. You may have already seen him around school, and he will be with us at Houston Christian until the end of the year. Colonel Coase recently retired as a command pilot in the United States Air Force, having served with distinction for over 24 years. He attended the United States Air Force Academy and has over 2,000 hours as an instructor pilot in the F-15C and F-22. He finished his career as commander of the 3rd Operations Group in Anchorage, Alaska, responsible for 5 squadrons, 563 airmen, and 58 aircrafts, valued at over $9 billion. His decorations include a Defense Superior Service Medal, the Legion of Merit, and an Air Medal for combat operations. He is married to Mrs. Amanda Koch and has 2 sons, John and Andy. He has been a Young Life leader, a guest pastor at Eastgate Christian Fellowship, a Bible study teacher, and coached multiple youth sports teams. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Travis Coe.
Do real well with podiums, so I didn't tell Colonel Wilson I'd probably walk around, but we'll see how we do. Thank you, Taylor, and everybody for putting this together. This has been awesome. Dr. Lewis and Colonel Wilson, thanks for letting me speak. It's really a privilege, and so I'll take a few minutes here today. Tough act to follow, Sir Norman Rigsby. I mean, even his picture is cooler than mine in the brochure. But go ahead. I have a special thanks. Before we do the next slide here, I want to thank all the veterans for showing up. What a treat. A little surprised at the number that made it, but it warms my heart, and I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for taking the time to spend with us today. I've got another special thank you if you can hit the next slide. So there's a bunch of other people that are family members of veterans. That might be spouses, it might be kids that are here. But a special thanks to our families who really have the most change, the most turbulence. The serviceman or the servicewoman plug right into the mission. They know what they're doing, and they hit the ground running, but it's really the family. So if we could just take a moment, a round of applause for the service members. Slide, please. Okay, next slide. This is what I'll talk about today. So I'm going to talk a little bit of why I joined the Air Force. I'll go through why I stayed in the Air Force, and then I'll talk a little about why that matters to you and what that means. The guys that you see on the screen are my namesake. So the fellow in the middle, I'm not related to, but my dad saw the movie The Alamo when he was here in Houston studying Texas history. And so he made a decision. I'm going to name my kid Travis, and that's what we're going to call him. So that's my middle name, and that's why I'm one of these middle name guys I grew up with. The guy on the left, that's my mother's dad. That's Richard Davis Neese, and he was a fighter pilot during World War II. He was a career service member, and he flew P-51s, was a squadron commander of a P-51 squadron, flew P-38s, and served in the European conflict, had an aerial kill, shot down a Messerschmitt 109. And the guy on the bottom right, that's my dad's dad, so that's Armin Koch, and that's, we say Koch because it's the German word Koch, which means cook, and so the long O, and so, and he served as a medical corps member in the Pacific Theater, and so that's my grandpa, and he was a Houstonian as well. But unfortunately, those guys were impactful to why I joined the Air Force, but not really the main reason. So if we can have the next slide. So I was born, I'm not gonna lie, I told you I'd be honest with you, right? Somewhere Karen Stewart is so grateful that the Navy influenced my decision. But yeah, I was born right before Star Wars, and I thought the Millennium Falcon was the coolest thing, man. And so I started looking for one, and I found out that the Air Force flew things like that. The top cartoon is Star Blazers for all the old people in the room. It was an intergalactic aircraft carrier that fought aliens. I haven't gotten one of those yet. A little bit of side dish of Battlestar Galactica, and then, yeah, Top Gun came out about a year before I had made the decision to go to the Academy. So yes, yes. Although Kelly McGillis, come on, no, anyway. But that's not why I stayed in. I got to do a lot of those things. I got to fly planes for most of my career, about 17 of the 24 years that I served in the Air Force. But really, the next slide is the reason why I stayed in. And that's the airmen. And so these are a handful of pictures. The guys in the top left are guys I went through basic training with. So came in from all over the country. There's a soccer player in there, basketball player, a rugby player. And they shaved our heads on day one. They like took everything you had. They said, wear this, do that. All the vets in here are like, yep, I remember that. Yep, exactly. I thought I knew how to walk, talk, eat, sleep, do all these things, but turns out I didn't. So they gave us great instruction on that. The guys in the bottom left, that's the lacrosse team. And so a bunch of misfits there. I see you guys back there. I know you guys back there. There's Peter, yep. And so, lifelong friends. As a matter of fact, those cats are the reason that I stayed. I did not feel, because I'm not gonna lie, I did not enjoy the Air Force Academy. And so, but I couldn't quit those guys. And if you ask the vets, they feel very similarly about the men and women that they served with. And so those guys kept me in. The top right picture is the first combat deployment that was in Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia. I'm the guy in the middle of the picture squatting down. We're standing on a Patriot battery. So thank you, soldiers, for all that you do for our air defense. And in the bottom right corner, that's the last day that I flew, and that was in an F-22. And those two guys in the picture are my crew chiefs. It's the men and women that turn the wrenches and service the aircraft in order to get the job done. And what I will tell you is this slide is only a drop in the bucket of airmen, soldiers, sailors, and Marines that make vets stay in the Air Force. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of why. What's so special about veterans in terms of why we stay in for one another. And I'm going to use my roommate slide from the Air Force Academy as the example. Okay, this guy on the right here, yes, Michael Stewart Pugh. Mike Pugh graduated 986 out of 987 cadets from he's my roommate. He was a wrestler. I mean, he's not that tall, so you can see there's a few inches shorter than me, but he wrestled like 178, and he just had his back, he kind of walked around like a gorilla. I lived with this man for 3 years, and we knew everything about each other. And so, some good, right? Some of the good stuff, and then if like you've shared a room with a brother or sister or a spouse, you know, she snores. Just kidding. Some of the bad. And Mike knew everything about me. Not only did he know my likes, my dislikes, you know, the fabric of who I was, but he also had experienced the same things that I experienced. So they shaved his head on day one. They told him how to walk, talk, eat, sleep, all these great things. They yelled at him a bunch. He starved. You know, we all lost about 20 pounds the first couple of weeks we were in basic training. And so not only did he know me, but he also experienced what I had experienced. And so that knowledge, my Spanish teachers in the room, the Spanish language has 2 words for to know. One is saber, and that's like you know that this is Houston Christian. You know that it's raining outside. It's like a beautiful Alaska summer day, by the way. But anyway, that saber is that kind of mind knowledge, but conocer is to know heart knowledge. That's like you know someone. It's like your parents know you, your spouse knows you. And this guy knew me, good and bad, and he still loved me. So that's the next slide, if you can hit the next slide. Okay, the second things that vets have. You heard Sir Norman Rigsby said, the most spectacular thing in that video to me was that he said, I'd go again. And Normandy was terrible. It was a terrible place to be. But he loved the soldiers that he was with so much that he would go again. That bottom verse there says, greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. And that's true. You know these people that you're stationed with, that you're serving with, you love them, not only, you know, because of that conocer love, that to the point of where you'll lay your life down. The pictures that you see up here, Mike, that's with him and my wife Amanda on the right-hand side. At the end of our sophomore year, we were at a party. Mike was not supposed to be there. He was confined, but he's like, come on, let's go. I got a car. Let's go. So we went, and a fight breaks out. And I get hit, blindsided, with that Black Magic Easton baseball bat in the fight. And it crushes my skull in. That's why it's not swelling. It's because all the swelling was in. And broke my face in 7 different places. Cracked my sinus, had double vision. Every Air Force doctor said, you will not fly, ever again. But when it happened, guess who comes out of the house to clean house? Mike Pugh. Now, I don't know, you know, hopefully not too many people have been in fights here, but if one team has a bat and one team doesn't, it takes a lot to pitch into that brawl. And he did. You know, he kind of pulled me into the house, and he just started chucking bodies. This is the wrestler, just throwing, no, you get on that side, no, you get out of here. And Mike jumped into that because of the love that he had for me. They medevaced me to San Antonio the day after this happened, and I had reconstructive surgery just down the road, about 3 hours. They rebuilt my face. I got plates and all sorts of stuff. That's another story for another day. But when I got back, they said, you know, you will never fly. And that's kind of, remember the first slide of the Millennium Falcon? That's why I signed up. So Mike didn't leave me. He encouraged me. Even when my days were tough, even when they were rough, I knew that I could count on him because he knew me and he loved me. And when that happens, and the vets in the room can speak to this, it transforms you in terms of what you're willing to do. So let's hit the next slide, and I'll tell you a quick war story. I think I'm still doing good on time. They said, be fast and funny, and we'll see how we do. I'm probably failing at both. Anyway, okay, so that picture that I showed 20 years ago, I got deployed to Prince Sultan Air Base, Saudi Arabia. It's nothing. I mean, it's sand, like, whew, nothing out there. And then, boop, they built this runway, and then, you know, a couple dormitories. It was nice. We didn't have tents. We had cable. I mean, it was real rough. Sorry, Army guys. Yeah. Join the Air Force, by the way. It's great. But anyway, we're in Saudi Arabia, and our job was to protect that purple zone there, the southern half of Iraq. We enforced what's called a no-fly zone. And day in and day out, the Iraqis would fly up to that line, so they'd fly due south, and they would turn their jets, and they'd fly east or west. And one particular day, I'm up there flying with a guy named Peace Herb, and we're patrolling, and we're pretty far south. We're hanging out. This plane on the bottom right corner is called an Airborne Warning and Control System, or AWACS. There's AWACS down there. They're painting a radar picture for everything. There's tankers. There's all these high-value assets, and we're defending them. We're also protecting the lines, so we're kind of doing double duty. So anyway, some Iraqi in a plane like that, that's a MiG-29 in the top right, that's an F-15C, that's what I was flying in the bottom left. MiG-29 flies south, and the warning radar guys are talking about him, and home dude does not turn. He just keeps flying. Now, I knew people on this AWACS, and I knew they knew me, and I knew they loved me. We were at combat together, and what I could not imagine that happened was this feeling of just Magilla Gorilla coming out of wanting to run down that MiG-29 and knock him out of the sky. And so we did. We took off, we lit our afterburners, we're running this guy down, and right about the time we're getting into engagement, that dude, you know, comes to something, comes to his wits, and turns around and flies north. But what I couldn't imagine was how freed I was of what I cared about myself in order to protect these men and women that were on these other planes. I could not, it was unfathomable, and I didn't know where it really came from. The more that I thought about it, I realized that the people on that plane, they knew me, and they loved me, and I was protecting them. And so I was really free to do whatever I have. Now, next slide. So what does that mean to you? To be known, to be loved, and to be liberated. This is a picture of a stained glass window. About 5 years ago, I got to go to Normandy. I had an unbelievable tour. Sir Norman Rigsby was right. One of the places that we went was a chapel, and this is a window that they have in the chapel of something that happened 75 years ago. And it's got pictures, if you can see on the left and the right-hand side, of paratroopers. So the invasion that we had people go across in boats, but this town was off the coast. We also had people that parachuted in. Some of them actually got hung up on the steeple on one of the churches. They have a statue that still memorializes this. But these French people knew what it was like to be known. They knew that the Americans understood the oppression that Nazi Germany was putting over them. They knew they were loved because men showed up to fight. Some of them give the ultimate price to give their life. And they were liberated. And so they put a symbol up to constantly remind them. Every week when they went into church, they would see this picture and they would see these soldiers, and it was a symbol that they were known, that they were loved, and that they were liberated. Now, for you, so how do you fit into that? Well, we have symbol 2. If you look up above the screen, there's a cross. Earlier, I had mentioned my roommate Mike, that he knew us. Well, the Word says that God knitted us together in our mother's womb. So He knows everything about you. He knows you're good. He knows you're bad. But not only does He know about you, He actually came down and went through all the trials that you've been through. He knows what it's like to be betrayed. He knows what it's like to be hungry. He knows what it's like to be condemned. And the amazing part is, He knows so much about you, that konoser love, and He loves you to the point of where He would come down and He would fight for you. So, after today, wherever you are, whatever that looks like, if you see a cross, there's 3 things that I want you to do. I want you to think about how you are known by our Father. I want you to realize, looking at the cross, how much you are loved, that He would fight for you. And then the challenge is, if that liberates you, what will you do because of that? Thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Please welcome Matthew Bradbury and Raven Castiglione, who are both applying to military service academies as they introduce our veterans.
It is my honor to recognize Holly Maiden Pace of the U.S. Navy from HC class of 2009, who served for 6 years and was a lieutenant.
It is my honor to recognize David Wallace Bridges of the U.S. Navy. He's the grandfather of Jordan Binkley, and he served for 3 years as an E-5 petty officer, and he campaigned at the Weapons Deployment UMA, Arizona. He got his carrier qualifications in Pensacola, Florida.
It is my honor to recognize David Berner of the U.S. Army, father of Abby Berner. He served for 4 years as a first lieutenant and was a graduate of West Point. His campaigns include Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and one commendation was the Bronze Star.
It is my honor to recognize Aaron Burns. He's the HC Security Manager, and he served for 4 years as an E4 Corporal in the U.S. Marine Corps.
It is my honor to recognize Bill Brinkley. He served 21 years in the Air Force as an architect. He is a recognized expert in rapid runway repair for the Air Force One. Currently, he is nationally certified and teaches Walkthrough the Bible nationwide. It is my honor to recognize Dr. George Joseph Chekis of the U.S. Air Force, grandfather of KK Hill. He served for 4 years as a first lieutenant, and some commendations include National Defense Service Medal and Air Force Longevity Service Award.
It is my honor to recognize Paul Cleveland of the U.S. Army. He's the grandfather of Hudson Malone, and he served for 2 years. He campaigned at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. He received an honorable discharge and a Good Conduct Medal.
It is my honor to recognize Danny Yu Lu Chen of the U.S. Army, father of Joshua Chen. He served for 3 years as a specialist E4, and campaigns include Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm. One commendation was the National Defense Medal. It is my honor to recognize Michael Dolan of the U.S. Air Force. He is the grandfather of Lauren and Matthew Thibault, and he served for 20 years as a major. One campaign was Vietnam, and he received 8 medals of commendation.
It is my honor to recognize Todd Henning of the U.S. Army. He is the father of Mark Henning. He served for 20 years and reached the rank of captain. He campaigned in Operation Iraqi Freedom. It is my honor to recognize Stuart P. Heiberg of the U.S. Air Force. He's the uncle of Abby Lambert. He served for 27 years and reached the rank of colonel. He campaigned in Desert Storm and received the Distinguished Flying Cross.
It is my honor to recognize William Luther Keeley of the U.S. Army, grandfather of Sean Kiley. He served for 4 years as a captain, and one campaign was Vietnam, and one commendation was the Bronze Star.
It is my honor to recognize Travis Koch of the U.S. Air Force. He is the father of John Koch. He served for 24 years and reached the rank of colonel. He campaigned in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Iraq again in Operation Iraqi Freedom. He received the Defense Superior Service Medal.
It is my honor to recognize Joel Christian Lambert of the U.S. Army, father of Abby Lambert. He served for 4 years and reached the rank of sergeant. Campaigns include Desert Storm and Desert Shield. One commendation was the Army Good Conduct Medal.
It is my honor to recognize Alfred Linhart of the U.S. Marine Corps. He is the grandfather of Bobby Linhart, and he served for 15 years and reached the rank of Staff Sergeant. He campaigned in World War II in Iwo Jima, Okinawa, and in Korea. He received the Purple Heart.
It is my honor to recognize Lawrence Harvey Richter of the U.S. Army. He is the great-grandfather of Caleb Allen. He served for 1 year and reached the rank of Staff Sergeant, and one commendation was Infantry Rifleman.
It is my honor to recognize Mike Self of the U.S. Marine Corps. He is the grandfather of Courtney Stagner, and he served for 3 years and reached the rank of corporal. He campaigns in Vietnam. He received the Naval Defense Service Medal.
It is my honor to recognize John Lister of the U.S. Army. He is an HC math instructor and served for 28 years and reached the rank of Lieutenant Colonel. Campaigns include Operation Enduring Freedom, Parachutist, and also Ranger. One commendation was the Meritorious Service Medal.
It is my honor to recognize David Nelson of the U.S. Marine Corps. He is our football coach at Houston Christian, and he served for 7 years and reached the rank of sergeant. He campaigned in Joint Task Force 160, Joint Task Force 6, and Operation Sea Signal. He received the Navy Achievement Medal First Award.
It is my honor to recognize Wayman Votah Jr. of the U.S. Army. He is the father of Christian Votah, served for 5 years and reached the rank of captain. Some campaigns include Desert Shield and Desert Storm. One commendation was the Bronze Star Medal.
It is my honor to recognize Colonel Tom Wilson of the U.S. Air Force. He's the HC Leadership Program Director, and he served for 30 years and reached the rank of Colonel. He campaigned in Desert Storm and in the First Gulf War. He received the 2nd Legion of Merit. It is my honor to recognize Jerry Diven of the U.S. Army. He is the husband of Karen Diven, and he served for 6 years in the Infantry 3rd Armored Division. It is my honor to recognize Lawrence Mitchell of the Air Force. He worked to the rank of sergeant.
It is my honor to recognize William D. Brinkley of the Air Force. He is a friend of Colonel Wilson and reached the rank of Lieutenant Colonel.
It is my honor to recognize Roy Thompson of the Air Force. He is the son-in-law of Norman Rigsby, and he was a sergeant. He was a Vietnam-era vet and worked with the 3,700 civil engineers.
It is my honor to recognize Duval Dickey of the U.S. Navy. He is related to Emma Dickey and reached the rank of lieutenant. He campaigned in Vietnam, and one commendation was the Vietnam Service Medal.
Okay, it is my honor to recognize Patrick W. McCullen. He is related to Caleb McCullen. He served in the First Gulf War, in Somalia, in Bosnia, in Kosovo, and Afghanistan. He received the NATO medal.
It is my honor to recognize David Porchin. He is a grandparent of a Houston Christian student and reached the rank of captain in the U.S. Marine Corps.
It is my honor to recognize Rick Block. He's the grandfather of Hayden Shearer. He was in the U.S. Air Force, and he reached the rank of captain, and he campaigned in Vietnam.
It is my honor to recognize Jim Maniaty. He is an uncle of a Houston Christian student. He served in the U.S. Marine Corps and reached the rank of sergeant. His campaign was Vietnam from 1966 to 1968. Now, if there are any veterans who we failed to recognize, would you please stand now? Served in, and something else about yourself if you'd like. Thank you. Thank you all veterans for all you've done for our country and for your service.
Please stand for the retiring of the colors. Honor Guard, retire the colors.
Honor Guard, Paul. Retire the colors. Forward march.
You may be seated. Please welcome Ellie Chavez, our female chaplain, for the closing invocation. Afterwards, the band will play the Captain America March. Students, please remain seated in your seats and allow the veterans to leave. Veterans, thank you again for your courageous service for this country.
Dear God, thank you so much for this day that we've had to recognize our veterans, both present and not present. Thank you for the time that you've allowed them to serve our country, Lord. Thank you for the glimpse of heaven that they give us as they continue to sacrificially lay down their lives for us, Lord, and for our freedom. I pray that you continue to bless their lives and the lives of their families, and help us to continue to recognize them every day. In Jesus' name, amen.